Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. My name is Professor Francesco Derchi and I'm faculty at Geneva Business School, so welcome from Geneva on this side of the world. For the topic of today we have chosen Challenger brand, which is a very relevant topic as we can definitely call brands and branding the subject for the 21st century. So if we start talking about Challenger brand, first we need to get everyone aligned on the concept of what a brand is. So according to Professor David Acker, the famous brand guru, a brand is an element containing three major pillars. The first pillar, which is on our left side, is whatever looks like a sign, name, logo, and chosen symbols related to a certain product or service. On the right side, we have the product or service which is performing on the market, which means that is actually the physical object of the transaction. And on top of it, as a third element of this combined situation, we have the promise, the value and the benefit proposition. So according for David Acker, the brand is a long-term contract, which is basically the promise that the brand delivers to this client. The contract is implicit and it goes on every time we choose to buy this specific product or service and we repeat our purchase. But it is the market that determines validity. That's why it is very, very important for every company to manage this asset in the right way. Another very relevant guru in terms of branding literature, branding professor Kevin Keller, in 2011 defined brands as the means to create awareness and image for products and services, and anything that comes to mind, like people, places, etc. The discipline of branding has evolved with the idea of creating differentiation and distinctiveness, which means that basically we see branding as a method to avoid the commodity trap, which in terms of economical topic, it's like a price competition trap. So looking for a definition from the industry, and not only from academia, we have a definition of Neil Fitzgerald, which is a former chairman of Unilever, the famous corporation, that declares that we create brands in our heads because we need to make choices. Brands allow us to return safely to what we have tried and what we have liked, and never make the same mistake twice. People create brands because they are useful. So going on with the content, what we can say is that a brand is like a three-stool table. We have indeed a table that has three different pillars. So on one side, we have a rational part, which is related to the product. On the other side, we have the emotional part, which is most likely related to the perception of that specific product projected in our mind. And on the other side, we have the user's part, which means that any product or service cannot be considered a brand without the perception that the users have related to this. This, as you can imagine now, it's a pretty balanced element because any part of those being lack or being weak makes the table unusable. So you need, as a brand manager, to manage all three different parts of the table in order to make it useful. Indeed, if we're talking about a brand, we can easily understand that we have what we can call the iceberg effect. What is an iceberg effect? The fact that we can have only the perception of the 10% of what the real brand is. Indeed, the logo, which is related to the external aspect, like the advertising, the media outcome of the PR, it's only the visible part of it, but it's only the 10%. The 90% of it, which is by far the majority, is related to aspects that are not visual, but as you can imagine, are not less important, like the product performance, pricing, product availability, or in terms of service, the sales and technical support, the delivery performance, or in terms of marketing, what is the positioning of the brand and the strategy on how to achieve and maintain that, or in terms of culture, the performance and behavior that the team needs to keep and maintain in order to keep the brand alive. And lately, but not less important, the financial aspect of it, in terms of profitability, the share price, the margins that the brand can express in the market among the competition, or the investor sentiment. What elements the brand needs to have to be considered performing? It must be credible. It must be promising something that can be achievable indeed. It must be relevant, It means that the market and the users must keep and maintain and retain the element of the brand as very relevant for their life. It must be sustainable, like from a financial aspect, and now more and more like from a social aspect, sustainability aspect. And then it must be different. It means that it must be perceived with a different reference related to the other competitors. What are the major challenges? Let's go straight to the core topic of the day. The major challenges nowadays for a brand are related to globalizations on one side, the fact that we are start to see that some brands can be found, many brands are now can be found with similar experiences all around the world. So it's a duty for any brand manager to be able to manage this brand experience coherent in many sides of the world. And on the other side, digitization, which is creating new ways to experience the brand and new ways and new brands themselves, which are now starting and popping up. Now, those two elements are clearly creating and impacting the world in terms of dimensions and not just in terms of experience, which means that we have more and more sort of creation of new creatures considered like global brands or corporation brands, which are basically, in terms of dimensions, in terms of budget, in terms of power, completely different from the majority of the products or brands on the market, which are much smaller. And for this reason, we are talking now about challenger brands, which means brands that are achieving or they have the aim to compete with bigger and corporate brands, but they're still small. So the idea is, what are the secrets? What can make in such a competitive and hard to beat industry? What are the elements that can make a little David to win over a big Goliath? So Adam Morgan wrote this book called Challenging Eating the Big Fish, where you can find out three major elements related to the challenger brands items. The first element is the state of the marketplace, which means that as the marketplace evolves, there is more and more space for small brands to get in, and we're going to see how. The second element is related to rapid growth, the capacity, the availability of these small brands to become relevant and keep it strong in a digital environment. And the third element is the state of mind. We're going to focus slowly on all these three elements, one after the other. The first is related to the state of the marketplace. How is the world today? Try to think about yourself 5 years ago and imagine how you have changed in 5 years. Now, we can definitely consider the market having changed even much more than what you have changed in the last 5 years. And here, I'm going to show you a very relevant video that is going to explain this. What defines a 21st century corporation?
The 21st century corporation really is different from the way companies used to be. The big theme is that it's operating in the long-heralded friction-free economy, and that changes everything, because that is a world in which labor and information and money move around easily, cheaply, and almost instantly. And as a result, companies now have completely new relationships with almost everyone they deal with, certainly with their employees, with their customers, with their owners. They don't need to own as many assets. They don't need to employ as many people. So for example, Uber is the world's largest car service, but it doesn't own any cars. Facebook is the largest disseminator of news content in the world, and yet it doesn't employ any journalists. All of this is possible today because in the friction-free economy, you can move the ideas, the information, the labor, and the money so easily, so quickly, and so cheaply that you can create these fundamentally new value-creating business models. The 21st century corporation actually faces a tougher life than the 20th century corporation did, because in a friction-free economy, there is no protection. You're competing against everyone and everything out there who might come up with a better idea than yours. The good news for companies is that you don't need all that physical capital that you used to need. The fact is, everybody has access to the 21st century's most valuable assets, which are openness to new ideas, ingenuity, and imagination.
Okay, so as we have seen, I wish you could be here with me because that would be a much more interactive part of the class. But as we have seen, the state of marketplace is changing. And due to digitization, basically, the globalization is becoming even more and more important. But the impact that this is having is related mostly, and this is what we want to focus on the fact that we have a context that is called frictionless, which is a context where we have basically no barriers around the three major assets that big companies used to have: work, information, and capitals. If now these three elements, people, information, and capitals, can be moved around in real time almost without any cost, the point is that you can create new relations, you can create new structures, and you can create new business models. Now, this is very important because as those were used to consider the most competitive and most important elements for a business to become strong and big, now you can start from scratch being small and still be competitive thanks to these assets. Now, it means that almost everyone can have access to these assets, and having access to these assets means that you can compete against big companies. So the marketplace is nowadays helping small companies to have sort of the same potential as others. If the small company have these three elements, that is the one that we want to focus on. That's why we call them challenger brands, because they have an open mind, because they're very adaptable, and because they can have a very fervent imagination, which means they have this very relevant asset, is called creativity. So let's move on. And this is the reason why we have Uber, the world's largest taxi company that owns no vehicles. Facebook, which is the most popular media owner that creates no content. It takes a lot of creativity and vision to do this. Alibaba is the most valuable retailer without inventory, and Airbnb, which does basically the same and is the largest accommodation provider that has no real estate. So openness, creativity are very relevant. Now, the point is there a space for the small brands? Yes, there are. Why? Because we have seen, and this is the second element, that within the digital environment, it is possible to achieve exponential growth. Now, if we're talking about rapid growth, we're seeing that most of the brands that have a growth in terms of market value so much to be considered challenger brands have in common the fact that their business results have been exponential. I'm going to show you a few examples of it today. Now here we see the example of Apple, when it grew from 2006 to 2012, every year almost doubled their revenue. Airbnb did the same in terms of nights sold and millions of bookings, and the same is doing with Tesla through 2011 until nowadays 2018. The third element, that is the one we're going to focus on, that we care for specifically, and this is one of the reasons why we invite you to the Geneva Business School MBA, is because the third element of this competitiveness starts from culture. Indeed, it's here defined by Adam Morgan as a state of mind. What is state of mind? Is your attitude. Now, if it's true that the greatest danger that a brand can face today is not rejection, but is indifference, and we know this because as we all live in the digital era, we know that we are basically indifferent to by far the majority of the messages we are exposed to every day. We see that most brands are not really doing marketing because the marketing they're doing, the efforts they're doing is basically leading towards indifference. So how do you really are able to become a challenger? The challenger is a small company we have seen, so they don't have the time or the luxury of indifference. So they must create strong preference. So in terms of state of mind, in terms of attitude, challenger brands are the one that create strong preference. So let's start understanding how, in terms of strategy, they make strong preference. So let's start with that. The greatest danger to challenger brand is not rejection, it's indifference. It means that as a smaller company, you don't want to fight for rejection. You want to fight for indifferent. It means that you have to become visible. And this is the hardest thing. 4 are the elements of the strategy. First, the attitude, which is what we call the intelligent naivety. Second, the strategy per se. And the strategy they are achieving for, it's called lighthouse identity. We're going to focus on this a lot. Third element, behavior, sacrifice and overcommitment. And as a 4th element, we have the sustaining momentum, which means that they are idea-centered. So let's start with the first, attitude, intelligent naivety. What it means that you are small enough to become cheeky, to be able to provoke the market, changing point of view, challenging the status quo, and gaining traction out of situation where people and common thought could think that there is no room for you to move. For example, laptops. How Apple moved from a normal PC to the real creative element that were barely treated as a PC. That's clearly an intelligent naivety. Nobody in this industry was able to do that. Nobody in the industry was able to change the view they were seeing the personal computer into something so creative. The same did Obama, to bring hope into politics. Nobody so far had been able to change and to challenge the communication of politics and the topic of politics into something creative and so viewpoint new. And the third element we take here is vitamin water, to be able to change water, which has always been considered a boring and commodity, into something fun. Now, intelligent naivety is not enough, because if it's just about visual provocation, you're not getting that far. So the second element that is so important for us now, it's related to the strategy. So what is the brand strategy we're focusing here? Is called lighthouse identity. What is a lighthouse? We all know that the lighthouse is a tower next to an harbor that is used it's used by sailors to identify where the harbor is, where motherland is, and so either you're going towards motherland or you're going away from the land in the deep blue ocean. You know that the lighthouse is a reference point. So challenger brands are doing strategy to become reference point. So how do you do this? The sense is the most important thing. Having the sense of who they are and the fact that their outstanding is rooted in a strong belief system. Second, their beliefs are a point of view anchored on a product rock. It means that this product is the one that you are using to prove the world that you believe in what you stand for. Second thing, they invite customer to navigate by them. That's why we call them lighthouse identity. They say, customer, you can navigate through me. Think of Apple when they started pushing themselves around, saying think different. They wanted to create a new viewpoint on the market. This is why they say they were navigating by them. You navigate the world through the brand. The same is doing Virgin. Virgin has been very provocative and saying, this is the Virgin way to see the world. You want to fly, Virgin Airlines is making you fly in a different way. You want a different kind of banking, Virgin Banking is a different kind of banking. So this identity they have, it's a projection they do in everything. And this is why they become a reference point, because everywhere you go, you always have a lighthouse identity standing for them. And watch out, every time you have a brand changing this lighthouse strategy for something else, you see declining in sales, you see declining in performance. This is the reason why Adam Morgan defined this as a very major element to grow. So when brands stop this growing phase and get into maturity, of course, their projection changes and everything changes accordingly. So this is only good only if you keep it as a major element for your report. Another example of a brand that does the same lighthouse identity is related to the provocation. So if you're not necessarily related to value, like marry me because of my value, you can always use it as an opposite side. So be clear what you are against. So I give you this example of Clubman. Clubman says, we are an offering on the market against civilization. The antidote for civilization.
Year of civilization has taken its toll. We recommend 1 week at Club Med. Club Med, where there are no clocks, no phones, no reminders of everyday life at all. Where you'll be rejuvenated by great sports, nourished on French cuisine. And the only difficulty you'll encounter will be leaving. Club Med Vacation.
It's clear that they're here following the same strategy, just pretending that to make you sure that you understand what they are against. Now, the same kind of strategy has been followed by this very famous brand, again from Unilever. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, as we were quoting before, the former chairman from Unilever. So Marmite is the product.
It's an early start for the rescue team as they visit a house in West London.
Neighbours reckon they're a little bit testy. We've had a couple of reports of neglect at this address. All we're going to do is have a little look around your cupboards.
Oh, stuck right at the back. Who knows how long that's been in there.
The team's only option is to remove the stricken jar.
Right. Get him back, clean him up.
Soon, a more delicate case is called in.
Wonder if I could come in and have a little chat. I think you might know what it's about. Yeah.
As the team have come to learn, offenders can be from all walks of life.
Promise you will go to a good home.
I'm sorry.
Across town, Lucy is dealing with a very different call.
I don't know why you're here, to be honest with you.
It doesn't take long before new recruit Callum Howe finds another jar in a shocking state.
Oh no.
What's the matter?
It's baby one.
Okay, don't panic.
It's not been used in months.
All right.
Lid's stuck.
Right, gently, gently.
Oh, I can change.
For those new to the job, such scenes of neglect can be traumatic.
Little child. I've not seen one that's small before.
After an emotional day, the team drop off the rescued jars at the rehoming centre,
Really love this one.
where a proud family welcomes their new addition. Love it, hate it, just don't forget it.
Love it, hate it, just don't forget it. So that's exactly the point of a lighthouse brand. You don't want to be, not fighting for rejection, you're fighting for indifference. So this is exactly addressing that specific insight. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so going more on the direction. Another element of being lighthouse is becoming a leader from an intellectual perspective, a thought leader. So in the case of Molson beer, we have a beer that want to become the lead for beer talks. Breaking the convention of the medium, they are leading the conversation around beers by owning the space of inspiration for conversation by changing the labels of the brand. The labels of the beer become the topic on which you can discuss around. Breaking the convention of the medium. So let's go and see the case, which is pretty interesting. It's short advertisement. They don't play much more with the narrative, but the idea is to provoking the way to do it.
You're a Molson Canadian drinker. Now I see you switched to one-man bachelorette party lager. Okay, joke's on you, Gary. They're the same. Molson made a new beer. No, they made new twin labels. Lots of them. Check out Ted over there. Wow. Yeah. Everyone loves the great taste of Molson Canadian. And now your Molson says even more about you. Hey, bartender, give me I'm getting freaky with Ron's girlfriend and he doesn't even know about his lager. Sorry. Well,
Let your Molson do the talking.
Let's Molson do the talking. Again, you let the brand become a part of your choice because you're inspiring you not just from a taste perspective, but also from an inspiration perspective. Now, moving on. Another very interesting element, when you are a lighthouse identity strategy, you want to become the third in the category. You can use every media, every asset as a media. Now, we all know the example of the Apple in Fifth Avenue. They're changing the way to feel about, to think about the store. But we're not talking now about how the in-store experience is. Now we're talking about how they use the space around the store to be a media itself, to communicate. Now, you can easily see that this is not a store. There is much more in it. There is symbolism, there is power, there is a possibility to inspire. Just by walking around it, you get inspired. The same strategy is being done by Lush. Lush is the cosmetic company, the British cosmetic company, that in order to communicate with every media as possible, when you were buying product to be shipped from their e-commerce, they were filling the package with popcorn instead of filling the package with plastic. So they were using popcorn as a fill for packaging space instead. So what does it mean? It means that you cannot be indifferent to a choice like that. It just makes you speak. It just makes you talk about it. It just makes you communicate about it. And this is why we're talking about becoming a thought leader. A thought leader is somebody that inspires no matter what and grow the conversation around the brand in this way. The third aspect that we are discussing related to the strategy is behavior. Now, we all know, or I believe we have all read example of overcommitment and sacrifice from this man, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs has been always considered an example of it. But of course, we have to quote him. And I'm proud of the things I've built and of the things that I am most proud, as proud of the things I haven't done as the thing I have done. Indeed, people think focus means saying yes, but it also means that by saying yes, it means that you are also saying no to something that you have decided to focus against. So sometimes it's possible that what matters the most is picking carefully for what you're saying yes to in order to dedicate onto these things. So it's no means me at all. It means saying no to the other 100 other good ideas that there are. So by picking carefully, it means that you're focusing on something specific. What are you focusing on? What is the purpose of this focus? The purpose of focus is to focus on ideas. Indeed, the challengers don't simply deprioritize. They give up things. They give up deliberately things that might matter less than the few things that really matter. Now, the question is, what are the things that matters? Now, we can find the answer to this question to an IPA databank research done on circa 1,000 case studies on around 226 challenger brands with 30 years of data, so it's a pretty big research, looking for which strategy works best in hard business terms, which metrics predict the best success. Now, the key metrics here is that effectiveness success rate is the most interesting element that we want to measure. So what are the among all the marketing action, the ones that are most effective? The few things that matters are here summarized. 16% rational actions. Remember when we're discussing about the brand with the three elements, now one of the pillars is the rational pillar. Second element, 26%, combined emotional and rational actions. Third element is emotional involvement. So 28% is pretty high, but the highest element that matter, which generates very large profit gains, over 34% of profit gains, is fame. Fame, what is fame for? Fame stands for awareness, but not just awareness, stands for awareness and word of mouth. For this reason, we see that challenger brands focus all their strategy in action that are majorly focused on creating fame. And this is why we need to understand that the best and most competitive element that brands have when they are small, in order to become big, are, as we have seen before, the culture, dedication, and a focalization on action that creates fame. Now, what is fame exactly? Fame means just more than increasing brand awareness. That's what we were discussing before. Fame means getting a brand to be talked about, so word of mouth, buzz. It means turning consumers into brand advocates. And this is also a very hard part because it creates a lot of emotional involvement to become a real advocate. Third element, giving a brand a sense of stature and authority beyond the actual size. And fourth, making sure that the brand is more likely to come to mind first and in every relevant context. It means that it's not just about brand awareness per se, but it's about mental availability. And now we're not going to focus on it, but if you come here with me in my course, I promise I will talk about this a lot. So let's recap and see a couple of initiatives that are totally dedicated to fame. The greatest danger to a challenger brand is not rejection, it is indifference, okay? So I want to show you how two of the most big brands around nowadays in the world, they were only, not even 10 years ago, small entities and have been challenger brands because in those years have been achieving this crazy exponential growth by focused on fame and I said overcommitment in culture. The first one is the example of Airbnb. Now, most of you knows Airbnb. Maybe almost 99% of you guys here know Airbnb. Now, a few years ago, Airbnb launched a contest. They asked all their guests and hosts to share with them stories. Among all the stories, some amazing, unbelievably amazing stories came up. I don't go full screen. Okay, so one of the stories that came out is this one that now has been lately published in this video.
Berlin, 1987. My father was a guard on the west side of the Berlin Wall, while another man guarded the east. Eventually, the wall came down, but even after moving away, my father carried a piece of it with him. While I grew up, it lingered over all of us, a barrier between him and the rest of the world. I decided I would help by taking him back to Berlin to show him the beautiful place it had become. When we arrived, the stranger who answered the door became familiar. The guard who patrolled the opposite side of the wall now welcomed us as a friend. After that, things were better for my father. Airbnb. Belong anywhere.
So you can easily imagine that a brand that has a payoff as a standing claim belong anywhere, when they found that the guests were sharing with them such an emotional and super strong stories, they decided to make this story public for everyone, because that was just too big and too great for a brand and to help people to become ambassadors of the brand. That's pretty easy. This is a crazy, amazing case of a brand that is using his content and his emotions to create fame. And I want to show you another very interesting case, which is related to the big brand only a few years, that are so excellent in results, called Under Armour. I'm sure that most of you know this. Now, the case of Under Armour is a case of a company that is finding itself in a very global competitive environment with a very good product, but still playing with major, big, huge brands fighting. Nike, Adidas. Now, what you need here is to have the strength to differentiate yourself. How they chose to differentiate themselves? They chose to go for not just an emotional part, but with the focus of will. That's why they found some very interesting testimonial that could talk the story of their own to resembling with the story of Under Armour. Here they go, the case of Misty Copeland as a first.
Dear candidate, thank you for your application to our Ballet Academy. Unfortunately, you have not been accepted. You lack the right feet, Achilles tendons, turnout, torso length, and bust. You have the wrong body for ballet. And at 13, you are too old to be considered.
I will what I want. So Misty Copeland is clearly the story of a person that with her determination managed to become the first ballerina of the American Ballet Theatre in New York. And it's not because of her body, but it's because of her will. So this is how a brand wants to position itself, to become a lighthouse, you see? How can you become a lighthouse? This is a great strategy on that direction. Second and last element, I still quote on Under Armour because I want to show you that through years, they kept on the same strategy. They just changed the testimonial up to this case. Giselle Bündchen, same strategy, just raising the bar higher. Giselle is a global icon, so the idea to become an inspiration is even stronger, is even bigger. And so the next and final video that I'm going to show you is the example of how Under Armour leverage on Giselle awareness for creating a challenger brand. So the idea is putting together Giselle, announcing that Giselle will be the next testimonial for Under Armour. We know that Giselle is not a sport icon. She's a fashion icon. She's a beauty icon, but not surely a sport icon. So by doing that on social media, that created a lot of answers, a lot of buzz. Positive buzz, but also negative. And this is how the brand, brave enough, leverage on that to create even more growth and sustaining their fame. I will what I want. I just want to leave you with a quick note. Those campaigns helped Under Armour to collect amazing growth as the one that we have seen with the other graphics of the other brands. You see that? Those are campaigning that they were run from late 2013 up to 2015. So see that how the growth was sustained with this, such an inspiration. I don't want to talk about the climate because this goes on other topics, not a topic of marketing. So with this note, I leave you, and I hope I've been enough inspiring for you to believe in the fact that you can come here and study challenger brands and branding with us. So I'm waiting for you in Geneva. Thanks a lot, and if you have questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you very much, Francesco. It was a pleasure to hear this lecture. There is one or two questions related to the things that we heard just now. So I will transfer you those questions now so that you can answer them before we continue with Ina and Marco on the details of the program. So there we go with the questions. And I'm just reminding you that you can ask your questions to both on the lecture and on the presentation afterwards for the program by typing them in the questions panel. If you're connecting through a mobile phone, there's a question mark there, and you can use it to ask your questions.
How to be a challenger
answering
in
the question.
Market. The first question is how to be a successful challenger in a saturated market.
Okay, so I think the question is pretty interesting, and I think it goes along with what we have seen. So the strategy is the same strategy as we have seen before. We have seen cases of accommodation. Well, accommodation and hotel industry is a saturated market. Maybe there must be not saturated destination, but the industry per se is saturated. Airbnb managed to win and to become the biggest and most interesting offer in the market, independently of the fact that the market was saturated. It's just because they had a clear idea, commitment, sacrificing, and focus on what matters, like new business models in the digital environment. So I think that the recipe is the same. It's not about the saturated market, it's about the commitment and the point of view. So it's about changing the point of view. This is pretty hard to read. What are the perspectives of digital branding as a PhD project?
How interdisciplinary?
Make the window bigger.
Yeah, that's not easy. I'm sorry, I need to figure out a little bit of the question. So, what are the perspectives of digital branding as a PhD project? How in this disciplinary it might be applied? How Airbnb may be digitally.
Secured from fake and tricks.
Secured from fake and tricks that very often still happening in people in EU. I twice crashed with such cases and stopped trust Airbnb. So it's not digitally secured, I suppose. Okay. Allora, I think that when you're dealing with user-generated content and user-generated products, I mean, exponential products, exponential platforms that use leverage assets or stuff on demand, you are necessarily dealing with the possibility of fake or unsecure situation. This is not just a case of EU, it's a case that is happening everywhere. We see it from Airbnb, where we can find it in Uber, we can find it in Lyft. There were examples of bad situation that happened in Lyft in the US, of a taxi driver will not behaving properly with guests. So we have a lot of situations like those. We need to define and understand a little bit what is really related to the brand per se, so if it's a topic of marketing or if it's a compliance element. I think here, if we get into not a legal situation, it's more a matter of compliance than a matter of marketing. But it's true that you can play and perform better by segmenting on value. So the more you're moving your attitude towards the market from a price, remember we were discussing about avoiding pricing. You move away from price towards value, towards commitment, towards inspiration, the less problem related to cheap action you have. This is measured. So it's a pretty interesting question. I wish you could be here to discuss a little bit more. How do you make a brand projection challenger stand out?
Protection challengers.
I'm not able to read there. A brand protection challenger? What does it mean? How do you make a brand protection challenger stand out?
If we don't understand.
No, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Are there a lot of Chinese company examples? Branding in China is a whole other level. There is some cases of Chinese companies. Yes, so Chinese companies are very interesting. There is a lot of a new study around the digital branding companies and luxury branding companies. China is getting very interesting in sort of two extremes. Used to be a manufacturing market, a manufacturing company where branding was not very relevant. Now we see a lot of evolution in the luxury environment, which is super interesting. You have an exciting designers coming from China and their style, and how they get the tradition of the visual aspect of the China market and the China tradition into branding. It's really fascinating. Same very fascinating world we find with the digital world. From Tencent onward, we have so many different examples. For example, Alipay to me is an amazing example of a company that's keeping up with the branding through being a marketplace. So I have a lot of excitement for that, and I'm after that pretty much. I mean, in their case, it's a bit different. We don't call them challenger brands because most of the markets are state controlled in the digital environment, and so you don't have small entities fighting the same liberal rule as much as you have in the Western world. It's a bit more different. They can be challenger brands in the luxury industry where they want to approach the global world and they're fighting against colossus like the Current Group or the Richmond Group. So it's pretty interesting as well. Yeah.
As you rightly said about brand, how can we prevent its brand from being copied?
No, you cannot prevent a brand from being copied. Actually, I want to be a bit provocative. You want your brand to be copied because you want people to follow up on you, to talk about you, because it means that you create fame around you. Now, the point is, how can you maintain your brand always outstanding? So you have to focus on your own performance. You don't want to control the market. You cannot control the market. All the strategies we have seen here are made of inspiring the market in order for the market to talk and to grow on its own. So you don't want to control the market. It's vice versa. How can we use this brand challenge in digitalization or in e-marketing? We have been seeing it. We have seen it with talking about the 21st century corporation. There is no limit between the real world and the digital world. Money, people, and information, which are the most important assets, they move away around the world easily and quickly without friction. So this is clearly an example of no limitation. So there is no difference between e-marketing or marketing. It's always the same story.
In the case of existing brands, that brand, what will be your best choice in terms of choice of branding strategies?
So I think every brand have different challenges. The challenges of a brand depends on their life and their state of maturity. So I don't choose. I mean, I work for brands and help brands to grow according to their life cycle, where they are, where they want to go. So you can change the perspective of the brand per se by changing the point of view. So I think I don't have to choose one brand. I think you have to decide what is the best strategy. So if you come here, you study what could be the different strategies to apply. That's probably the right question. So I find that there are many brands that in order to get fame make promises they cannot afterward follow. Yes, this is a problem. So my answer goes to the theory of David Acker. David Acker says there are three elements that matter: the visual aspect, the promise, and the product. So if the product fails, you are basically harm yourself. It's like you're shooting your own foot. So it's a silly strategy. It's a wrong strategy to be over-promising. You have to be very credible, working on your product before talking and working on the other two aspects. So I believe that in this specific situation, the choice is to focus on the product, not the other way around. Not to make promises that you cannot keep, but to improve your product and then become an inspiration, also because your product is excellent. So the choice here, as a consultant, I always work on companies to tell them that to improve their products instead of the other way around. Okay, that was pretty intense. So thanks a lot for your question.
Thank you very much, Francesco, for the answers. We still have some more questions, and we still have time for questions on the branding side of the things. So I will ask all of you to keep typing in your questions. But let's now go to the presentation of Ina and Marco, who will present us and give us more information regarding the programs of Geneva Business School. And then we will go on with both questions to Francesco and to questions related to admissions as well.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Akhtyrska. I'm International Admission Officer in Geneva Business School. What we are offering education in a very high level. We give maximum of content in a minimum of timing, and our Geneva campus is having the same program as we do have in our Barcelona and Madrid campus. That's why no matter which campus you will choose, you will be able to follow the program and you can be able to switch semesters. I wanted to show you a little bit what we do here in Geneva. I created for you the slideshow because most of the times the students come to study in September and in February. We have 2 intakes per year. And of course, we start with the city guide, with our corporations and the facilities that we have here. In Geneva, we always show United Nations and library because all our students, they have annual pass to United Nations and they can visit either side events, either conferences, either library, and this is a great opportunity for them to have network because many people they are looking for internships and it's a great place where you can find real diplomats, real people from NGO, their own businesses. So that's a great place to be for the people who want to study in international relations, in finances and management as well. I want to show you a few slides and I will stop in each of them. You can see here we had a visit of our partners from around the world and we were having a workshop for people. It was like a work 2 days with people from around the world. Many countries were presented, India, Morocco, Turkey, Egypt, Ukraine, Russia, and our guests, we were hosting them just last month in May. Here you can see a little bit of information from the United Nations and also Geneva as a city. And here you can see our great colleagues who are representing GBS around the world and our CEO who got an award from our partners from Ukraine. And here you can see facilities on our campus. This is one of the conference rooms because we are inviting many speakers to give open lectures to our students. And our professors, they are not teachers in everyday life. What we do here in Geneva, we invite working professionals to do the classes for you and to share their best practices with you. They are not coming for the teaching salary, they are coming to share their experience and best practices. And the case studies that they give you, this is taken from real life. Here you can see one of the conferences that we had, and also we organize a lot of events on campus besides the real lessons. This is mindfulness and yoga seminar that was taking place for students. It was about how to relieve stress, how to combine different stretching activities on their workspace. Here you can see it was an open lecture from one of our diplomats, ambassador of Ukraine to Switzerland. He was presenting the role of diplomacy in international business. To our students, it was also part of the conference online and in campus area as well. It was also this semester. I'm showing you the newest information that was going on campus. Except the real studies, we have also some part of cultural activities. This is Swiss fondue that we are inviting you guys to try for each Christmas break. And here you can see one of the recruitment session for our students, when we invite companies on campus and they can recruit our students, they can present their CVs, motivation letter, and go search for the right internships. One more Christmas visit to the restaurant, and here you can see the class visits with our new students who are coming each September and February. Halloween party, as you see, and we have also student council that is organizing hiking, different city visits around Geneva, International Students Day, because we have around 50 nationalities on campus, and we always try to represent the culture and the style of the country from where students come from. So they all come with the flags and the costumes of their countries. This is one of the events they've been visiting in United Nations, and last week visit to Japan Tobacco International, affiliate here in Geneva, headquarters. Not many times we have a big group allowed to visit the corporations, but we are always fighting for the places, around 8-10 people to come and see the companies. Each semester we start our presentation and introduction with professors, because you are guys choosing your schedule and you are choosing your classes. So for you it's important to know what is the class about, and this is a brief presentation of each class. We have different professors on campus, from very, very young ones that look like our students to very professional ones who are teaching in different institutions. So they are all presenting their courses to the newcomers. And you can see our student lounge that is also used as a co-working space for a lot of people who are having their businesses. So in one of the classes we did this stress relief activity. And here you can see also example of our defense for one of the MBA students who graduated last semester. The trip to Lyon, which is nearby here, to Geneva, and also United Nations with the famous square, United Nations Library, where all the students of GBS have a unique access. And our students also, except of studies, they do lots of sport activities outside the campus. It's not only about soccer and football, it's also about dances and swimming, and we have special agreements for our students in terms of sport facilities. So we are trying our best to make not only the study procedure, but your activities outside campus very wide and interesting. In terms of admissions, I will say a few words. We are having right now very hot season, because many international students they are applying, and to come to Switzerland it's minimum requirement 2 to 2.5 months to get the visa. That's why if somebody is interested for September intake, we encourage you to make the applications as soon as possible. We are doing admission process in a few stages. First stage is application through the website, and our team will contact you in terms of Skype interview or telephone call or WhatsApp conversation. And when your full files and dossier is completed, we are having an application fee, which is 150 euros for a start. And for students who is coming from abroad, we have admission fee also. Afterwards, you are getting the admission package. At least the payment of 1 semester is required. For MBA students, it's 3 semesters of studying, and you can decide either you can make all the studies in 2 semesters and you leave third semester for writing your thesis and doing research work, or you can split into 3 semesters the studies. This is for you to decide. For international students, we do have deadlines, so in case you decide to apply, we encourage you to do it before 15th of June. Then it will give us the opportunity until the end of the month to send to you admission documents, visa package, it's so-called admission letter, your study plan, your confirmation of enrollment. We can provide you address either in Geneva or in Spain when you are applying for visa. And we send you your receipts, because for each embassy you will need to show that your studies are paid before you are coming to Switzerland. Of course, in each country the procedure for applying into Switzerland or Spain would be a little different, so you might be asked to have a financial confirmation of your bank account. For embassy, this is very important to see that you are financially stable when you are coming abroad for studies. Here in Geneva, we have also accommodation service for you. We are controlling about 25 to 30 apartments, and we can provide you either shared room, either single room, either studio apartment for just your use, and the prices are average in Geneva accommodation market. They are starting from 700 Swiss francs per month to 1,300 per month. The expensive one would be obviously the studio, and our apartments are separated by female and male. And so in case you are booking the single room, you will be either just with girls, either just with boys. All of our apartments, they are furnished, and they have minimum necessary things that you need when you come to studies. And we have pick-up services from the airport. So basically, we provide a service from the A to Z. And we pick you up from the airport, we help you with registration, we help you with accommodation, and with start of your studies. The welcome week is usually 1 week before the classes start. So this year we start welcome week from 16th of September in Barcelona, Madrid, and in Geneva at the same time, and the classes will be starting from Monday, from September 26th. In case you will have more questions about admissions, I will answer, and of course our people from our marketing team will be happy to contact you after the webinar, and I will pass the word to our campus director and co-campus director, who can explain you a little bigger picture in terms of accreditations that we have here for Geneva Business School. Thank you for attention, and I know that our Mark Hutton is having a class, because he's also one of our professors. Mark Hutton is campus director, and he is the person who created GBS from the very start, and he knows everything.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lina, for your presentation. And I just have to remind the candidates that you can ask all your questions by using the chat box. And if you're using a mobile phone, there's a question mark there where you can click and you can type in all your questions. And we are taking in more questions regarding admissions. We have some questions already built up, so Ina, you can answer them whenever you end whenever you're done with the presentation. Yeah, please go on with the presentation. I'm just reminding that you can ask your questions whenever you feel like asking any questions.
Which part of application is the most important? After we have all your documents, we set up interview with you by Skype, either by WhatsApp, and basically when you are entering Geneva Business School, we base application on your documents. We don't do any entrance tests like GMAT and things like that. So the good preparation of your documents, I would say it's the most important part, because you are working on your CV, motivation letter, you are gathering reference letter from your previous studies or maybe employee. So for us, it's the first stage of application is the most important as for administration. For you, it would be the most important when you are getting visa. Because if you are coming from abroad, you need it to come to Switzerland and to Spain. In case you are EU citizens, this is easier procedure in your case. I actually replied to two of them.
Just if I can add, regarding students actually who are living outside the EU, there is massive demand in Geneva during the two intakes, not just for Geneva Business School, but for other people who are traveling to and from Geneva. So the authorities here, they can take a long time to reply to you. So if you are applying for a student visa, make sure you give yourself plenty of time, at least 3 to 4 months, and make sure you apply to every single element. If you notice that there are 9 or 10 documents that have to be submitted, please make sure that you submit every single one of the documents and do not leave anything out. We've had numerous incidences in the past where one document has led to 4 or 6 weeks delay. So it can be very, very frustrating for everybody. So we can obviously assist you as much as possible, but please make sure that you provide all of the information that they ask for. We can assist you here in the marketing and admissions team. They're on call to support you with this at any time, but do not leave it to the last minute, because you'll be disappointed. Because, as I said, there can be a big backlog and a big delay around September and February when applying.
There is a possibility for distance learning courses?
So for the distance learning, it's something that we offer to students. It's not the same experience as we do have a basic distance learning opportunity, but it's not the same experience as the on-site experience. That has to be made clear. So where our core business is to offer face-to-face teaching, and that is by far our strongest approach. We have all of our professors who are working professionals, and I can say that we're very, very strong in that respect. The distance learning, as I said, we do offer, and it's basically, we use Google Classrooms as a platform, and you will be registered for the same classes as if you were here, but it is not the same experience as face-to-face. So it's really for those students who cannot make it to Geneva, and you can discuss with your agents to try to see if there's a possibility in the next intake.
And as for financial questions, we are flexible in terms of giving you the opportunity to pay in installments, but for international students who are applying for visa, at least first semester is a need to be paid. When you are here on campus, we can provide you with better financial options and installment plan. But in case you are entering the country, either Spain, either Switzerland, first semester should be paid, and later on we will help you with documents here on campus when you are applying for Swiss residence card, either Spanish residence card, and we will explain you and guide you in terms of health insurance, in terms of what to do, where to go, and how to live here in the city.
If I can just add as well, because we have the reason why I'm focusing a little bit on the international component and applying for visas, because we have probably 85% international students in both of the GBS campuses. So when it comes to applying, there are two main things that the authorities look for. One is academic and the second one is financial. So as Ina has clearly mentioned, for the financial components, you need to make sure that you have sufficient sufficient funds available in internationally recognized bank accounts. Ideally, if you're applying for Switzerland, you would need 25,000 Swiss francs. That is the typical value that the authorities are looking for to ensure that you can come here and you're stable and you don't need to try to search for work. So please make sure that you have sufficient funds in addition to paying for your first semester in an internationally recognized bank account, because if you don't, that could cause delays for your student visa. And as I said, for the academic component or the academic part, you need to make sure if you're applying for a master's program and you already have a master's, then you need to make it very, very clear why you wish to apply for a second master's. I can tell you just from our experience that the authorities here are very strict. So if you have applied for a bachelor's and you leave maybe 5, 6, 7 years before then applying for your master's, it can be quite complicated. And if you already have a master's and you're applying for a second master's, that can also be complicated. So you have to have a clear logic when you're applying and a clear motivation letter explaining why it is that you've applied for any of the particular programs in Geneva or in Barcelona or other campuses. Is that clear?
Yeah, we cannot hear the answers,
okay.
But about accreditations, if you may.
About accreditations, yeah, we have programmatic accreditations. As you may be aware, in Switzerland, you have public universities and private universities. In Switzerland, we're a private institute, so we do not have public recognition, but we have IACBE, which is an American programmatic accreditation, and that is recognized by CHIA, which is the highest accrediting authority in the United States. And they have about 250 other universities and business schools, which essentially acts as a benchmark. So in terms of what we do here, we try to take the best of all of the different aspects of education. So the US, we have the American accreditation system. For Europe, we follow the Bologna system, like most other European universities, where we have the credits and the learning descriptors, and we follow the credit system for learning hours. And we use the Swiss system for grading. So all of the subjects here out of 6, 4 out of 6 is the pass mark for the bachelor's, and 4.5 out of 6 is the pass for master's programs and doctoral programs. We also have Edu Universal Ranking, so we're very well placed when it comes to Edu Universal Ranking. You'll find that on our website, and we're part of the 10 selected schools for Switzerland, amongst public universities as well, on Edu Universal Ranking, where we have 3 palms currently. I hope that answers most of your accreditation related questions on ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
How do we make the academic schedule? Because I said that people can register it in the beginning of semester.
Okay.
And in terms of being a professor, how is the final grade being provided?
Okay, so I'll give you an outline of the registration process from when they start up until when they finish the semester. The idea of registration is that all of the students, so existing students, current students, and new students, they all come at the beginning of the semester in the 1 week prior to starting the classes, and you get to choose a subject. You sit down with my team, and we choose the subjects from a large list of subjects. Typically, you have about 80% common business subjects, and 20% are in a specialized area. So even if you're not sure which major or which specialization you wish to do not worry, because there's still 80% which are core business subjects. And you know, if you want to work as a diplomat, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to choose international relations, because we have lots of students who change their majors or change their fields during their studies because they discover new subjects that they didn't even know about, or other specializations. So after you've chosen the subjects, you have approximately 10 subjects, so between 8 to 10 subjects, depending on your program, per semester. And you have various different assignments for every one of those subjects. And it could be projects, it could be exams, could be mini assignments, could be tests. Every one of the professors has a different way of assessing. And then, assuming you pass the module, you receive the credits. And the idea is to try to accumulate as many credits as possible. And because we operate with the Bologna system, you need 60 credits per year, which is 180 credits for a bachelor's or 90 credits for the master's.
And I would like to pass the word to our Global Marketing Director, Mr. Sebastian Trayon. And we have a question here about the possibilities for students. Is there any help in terms of finding internships?
Not only yes, it goes together with our motto. It says real business for future leaders. The real business applies, as our professor said earlier, they are not only teachers, they actually work in companies. So we are fortunate enough to have professionals working in big corporations in the different cities where we are. And we can provide internship opportunities for students based on their abilities and things they would like to do in the future. And talking about internships, something is working quite well thanks to the student visa the student gets. They are allowed to work a maximum of 20 hours per week. So that's something completely legal. They get paid, of course, for the internship. Well, some of them are paid and some are not paid, but at least they get an opportunity to work in the real business, working with professionals and handling, let's say, business situations, talking about economy, HR, everything that's work in this world. Yeah.
And we award you for making these internships. If you do 3 months of internship, we provide you a contract that you sign with your company with evaluation in the end, and we give you 3 credits. So it's basically if you are failed in one subject, we compensate this subject by internship. And in case of our successful alumni, maybe if you know any example of people who graduated.
Probably, yeah. So, I've been around a little bit longer than Sebastian, so just from the experience, we have the he was the former ambassador to the United Nations in Mongolia, who went back, and I know that he was working on he was working on a very, very large governmental training project. I haven't been in touch with him recently, but in terms of jobs, because I know the majority of our students and maybe the parents that are listening, they often come and say, look, if I started your business school, can you guarantee you will get me an internship or a job? So we need to make it clear that we cannot provide you a guarantee that you'll get a job or an internship, but we can guarantee that we can provide you with the tools to provide you with all of the skills necessary to improve your chances of getting a job. I often, if people come and ask me about the possibilities of evidence of getting jobs, if you simply go on LinkedIn, we have a very big following on LinkedIn where you'll see a large number of Geneva Business School alumni are in jobs. Typically, as students, because of the profile, they go back to their countries. So I'm still in touch with many students from Vietnam, from Russia, from Azerbaijan, from Mongolia, from China, and many of the students, the vast majority, are very successful after coming here to receive a Swiss education. And then they go back to their country. Many of them entrepreneurs, many of them work for international companies. And we're very proud to have, at least in the 20, 25 years we've been in existence, a very good track record so far.
If there are any other questions concerning Geneva Business School, we are happy to provide the answers. Let us know how much time we have.
Yes, well, we don't have any more questions. I would recommend that we wrap up with a summary of the admissions process. Maybe you can give us the steps and which are more important for admissions. I mean, which stages of the process should people prepare for a little bit better than the others? Of course, everything should be perfect in an application so that it passes, but if you can give us some tips on where to focus more effort, it would be very helpful. And we can wrap up with this information to close the webinar.
Okay, for bachelor's and masters, it's very important that the online application is completed as accurately as possible, which means ensuring you provide evidence of English levels. It's very important. If you're applying for bachelor's, evidence that you've completed high school or equivalent A-levels, international bachelor, all of the information is on our website. For masters, evidence that you finished a bachelor's in a similar field, and you need a good motivation letter, so an accompanying letter to clearly indicate why it is you wish to apply for those particular programs, why that specific major. And the same documents will be used, if you're an international student, will be used for your visa. We can assist you with that. So if you have doubts about what to write in there, try to sell yourself. Make it clear what your strengths are. Make it clear what it is you can also do for GBS. So it's not just about us accepting you on your academic merit, but we have a very strong GBS community here, and it's very important that when you come to GBS, you try to offer something up to us as well in the sense of extracurricular activities. So write down everything you're doing. I know that if you're a bachelor's applicant, you'll probably have a very light CV, but it's important you mention your interests, your motivations, some of your skills, what it is that you're applying, why it is you're applying for that particular program. And for master's students, if you have work experience, so it's very good to mention the work experience you have, how it's helped you. Obviously, we like the idea of you having experience working in teams, leading teams, and because all of those elements we will help develop further once you start the master's program. So clearly outline all of your skills, try to sell yourself. As I said, your CV, make sure your CV is clear and it's legible. In terms of the documents, try to make sure that the documents are as clear as possible and they should be translated into English. So if you have them in foreign languages, try to get them translated before they're sent over to us, and that will save everybody time as well.
And if you have any specific working experience that you can describe as life success, even if it's not connected to your major, but you created your startup company, you are successful in your business, for us it's also a good sign, and we are supporting our students' projects in case you are having your own NGO or you are having your charity activity. It shows that you are active enough and that you can implement everything we teach you in the real life. So for us it's important, even though we don't say it on our website and you will not find it in the list of the required documents. It could be something extra to your documents that we think brings value to the company and shows you as a leader.
So I think just to finish off, because you mentioned about the admissions, there are lots of opportunities, there are lots of options around the world, but I think if you're looking for the opportunity to study in a friendly environment, in a safe environment, in an environment where you have small classrooms, you have very highly qualified, academically, professionally qualified professors, in an environment where you know that the professors and the admin staff will take care of you in all aspects. So it comes to accommodation, administration, registration. GBS would be a very good choice for you. Just from all of the students who have been through our doors and left and got good jobs, I think that is a good sign of the success that we've had with our students. And many of them are now recommending more friends and family members to come and join us. So we have a very good track record, and I think it will be nice to have more students like yourself here in the future.
Yeah, this is a good link to what we've been talking about before with our Professor Derchi. That's a combination and liaison between the brand and our students to be ambassadors of GBS. And we are also hiring our alumni and our students for internships in terms they have any specific ideas how to create our affiliates around the world, or how to help us develop in